Well, my fellow adventurers, during a typical guild meeting, we would have two speakers, each speaking between 4 and 7 minutes. Tonight, however, we have but one speaker. Normally, this might make for a short guild meeting, but by a wonderful fluke, as was mentioned tonight by Matthew, this speech will be between 7 and 9 minutes in length. Now, without further ado, let us welcome Lonnie Huff, who will be enthralling us with her speech entitled Prima Dame Fear. And by Lonnie's request, allow me to introduce this presentation by setting the scene. You and your companions find yourselves irresistibly drawn to the sounds of haunting organ music, first down one hallway and then a second. At the end of the second hall are a pair of heavy, dark wooden doors covered with faces that seem to alternately grimace and sneer at the flickering candlelight. Almost against your will, you approach, but before you or one of your companions is able to reach for one of the two door handles, both doors open wide, and you are overwhelmed by the melancholic tones of a pipe organ at the far end of an enormous dining hall.
I bid you welcome, most esteemed guests, to Castle Ravenloft, high seat of the Von Sarovich family. Please, sit. Allow your most gracious host to regale you with a tale of treachery and sorrow, of dark powers that promise revenge, but accept their own terrible price in recompense. My mother, Ravenovia Svarik, is a practitioner of the dark arts and is renowned for her skill at enchantment. In King Berov von Tsarevich, she saw an opportunity to rise above the said nomadic state of the Vestanti people. Besotted by her beauty and ensnared by her magic, King Berov married my mother and made her his queen. At first, he was impressed by her ruthlessness, but gradually, as his mind worked its way free of her magics, he grew frustrated and grew to resent her assertiveness, believing her to think herself his equal. He was wrong, of course. My mother was twice the ruler of my father. But it was the seeds of this contempt that made it easy for Ilyana Petrovna to convince him that his bride had somehow been unfaithful. Enraged, he had my mother imprisoned and sentenced to beheading. He was too stupid to know what she was then. A powerful witch who easily escaped the confines of the dungeon in which she was captured by transforming into her namesake, a beautiful black raven. She escaped the castle dungeons, leaving her throne empty, and her little daughter, Strahdislana, motherless. Pressing her advantage, Ilyana married my father. To her endless frustration, however, he had learned his lesson with my mother and refused to make her queen, even after she bore him a son, Sergei. 5 years and several worlds apart, Sergei and I could not have been more different. He had golden hair and blue eyes, while I had the looks of my mother's people, the Vestanti. While his interests ran toward the insipid pursuits of hunting and dancing and music, I was studying every arcane text I could get my hands upon, texts secretly funneled to me by my mother. through a handmaid who served us both. Angered by her lesser station relative to that of my mother, Ilyana became determined that her son Sergei would sit the throne, relying upon ancient Vansarovich proscription against female rulers. She arranged for him to be engaged to a beautiful but empty-headed second daughter of a noble family named Tatiana. Unwilling to cede my rightful throne to my dullard of a brother, partly due to having been born a woman, I accepted my mother's help and seduced Sergei, appearing to him in the guise of his beautiful young fiancée and conceiving a son. I initially played the part of the bashful maid, unwilling to admit the paternity of my son Casimir. It was only when King Berov debuted his grandson Fyodor, son of Sergei, and announced that he would someday sit the throne that I revealed the truth. My son Casimir was also Sergei's son, and as the elder of the two brothers, he was the true heir to the throne. I had won, or so I thought. Unfortunately, I did not take into account Ilyana's ambition or Tatiana's vanity. The two of them conspired to poison my evening wine, just a little. Not enough to harm my adult constitution, but enough that my little baby became sicker and sicker as it sipped through his mother's milk. He died, despite physicians' greatest efforts. Physicians I later had tortured and killed for their failure to save their future king. At this point, mad with grief, I begged my mother's intercession on my behalf with the dark powers she served. They offered a bargain, revenge and my throne, in exchange for the end of the Vansarovich family line. At my mother's suggestion, I killed our father and drank his blood, becoming Prima Damphir, a vampire not sired by another as is traditional, but spontaneously created through unholy magic. Tatiana I beat, but did not kill. Instead, I turned her, the first of my spawn. I entombed her with my brother beneath the castle in the catacombs. The two naively thought that their love would be their salvation. But Tatiana was new and untrained. I should have preferred that the floors of our castle not quite so thick that I might have better heard my brother's screams. Ilyana, the slattern who thought herself equal to my mother, fled the castle and would have escaped beyond the bounds of my kingdom had my mother not caught up with her. She dragged her back to me, bound and newly shorn of all her golden hair, all the hair she had been so prideful of. I bid her as well, and she has served us both as chambermaid these past 4 centuries. It is said that the greatest blasphemy of vampirism is the loss of the ability to create life. My womb is as cold and barren as these castle halls. But I am still a mother, only now the Damphir are my children. For what mother has not felt the agony of a sharp tooth at her breast? And what mother has not sought to satiate the seemingly endless hunger of an adolescent? And what mother would not manifest the ferocity and rage of the 9 hells in defense of her children, or in vengeance of their deaths? This is why I have invited you here. Each of you savagely butchered one of my children, ended them before their time, for their time as my reign is destined to be endless.